So maybe some of you already woke up to your two turtle doves, yes? Or maybe when you get home, Amazon will have left them on your porch, no? And then tomorrow is the 3 French hens. What are we going to do with all these animals? I'm really glad that that's not literal, that it's just a song. But it's one of the only ones that sort of points to this ongoing season of Christmas. As far as the secular world is concerned, it's over and done with. Christmas happened, it's in the past. The work, the planning, the anticipation, it all culminates in a day. A tradition maybe, some memory making, and now all the songs have been sung, the eggnog's gone, the stockings are empty, and we're moving on. It's the day after Christmas. It's my aunt's birthday. My Aunt Rita is 70 years old today. Happy birthday, Rita. Yeah, I'm going to tell her about this, and she'll watch. Every year, I would hear my Aunt Rita talk about how it was hard sharing her birthday with the baby Jesus. The main reason was because nobody wants to party on the 26th. Usually, she would have a party with her friends weeks later when people were available. And also, this was her pet peeve. To this day, don't ever do this to someone who has a Christmas birthday. Hand them a gift and say, oh, this is Christmas and birthday, and just kind of walk away and hope that you don't notice that they're just trying to lump it all in and get away with something. She'd rather have 2 smaller gifts than one awkward walk away from it gift. But we all kind of do that sometimes. We want to just lump it into one day and then get back to business as usual. That never happened to me as a kid because I have a May birthday. No one would ever try to lump it in as the same gift. So I don't have that experience. And yet we all know this tendency to say, let's just get on with this. Whatever it is that we're trying to get on with, life, okay, well, it's here, it's happening. So maybe we just need to slow down and give it a little bit of attention. A lot gets put on one day, December 25th. The hopes and fears of all the years are met in this one day. How could that even be possible? Maybe it doesn't happen all at once. Perhaps our faith has less to do with a time slot on a calendar and more with this gradual unfolding of love, an awakening and a turning toward hope. The story doesn't end with Jesus' birth, right? That's the beginning. If we're going to follow him as his disciples, then this is the beginning. We're just getting started. Maybe the year is ending, but the baby has just been born, and we're in it for the long haul. Now, that is a term that has a new layer of meaning as of recently. We have COVID to thank for that. My dad had a breakthrough case back in September, and he was recovering well. And then just a few weeks ago, he was diagnosed with what they're calling now long hauler syndrome. Ugh, it's awful. And it can manifest in so many different ways. I've talked to people who have memory issues, the brain fog, COVID fog, we've heard about that. Or for some people, it's having more of an effect on their cardiovascular system and they have trouble breathing. For my dad, it's attacking his joints and he is just in constant pain. And that's a difficult thing for anyone. So I was talking to him yesterday. I called him for Christmas. How are you doing? He says, I'm okay. I'm taking it one day at a time, and maybe it'll get better. We just don't know. We have to wait and see. Only time will tell. Waiting, is so hard. We have to just let go of our need to know. We have to give ourselves over to something that we can't quite understand, this holy mystery called love. So, Advent is officially over, right? All the candles are lit on the wreath. But our journey of faith continues. And we have inherited this tradition that is a story about waiting and fruition, about love that is already here and not yet fully realized. So the 5th chapter of James frames this for us. And I'd like to read that now. James 5, verses 7 through 10. He says, "Be patient, therefore, beloved, until the coming of the Lord. The farmer waits for the precious crop from the earth, being patient with it until it receives the early and the late rains. You also must be patient. Strengthen your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is near. Beloved, do not grumble against one another, so that you may not be judged. See, the judge is standing at the doors. As an example of suffering and patience, beloved, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord." The word of God for the people of God, and together we say, Thanks be to God. Thanks be to God. So we wait and we wait and we wait and we wait some more. It's something that if you've lived very long, you're familiar with. You may not like it, but if we look to the prophets in the Old Testament, as James says we ought to, then we have to acknowledge there's 400 years in there between the prophecies of the Old Testament and then the birth of Christ the Messiah. Jesus didn't show up right as soon as it was prophesied. No, 400 years. We're talking generations. A long time. That's our story. Waiting is nothing new. Now, I read that the average American, if we consider ourselves average, spends a year of our lives waiting in line. A year. If you add up the time we spend in line at the bank, at the grocery store, traffic lights, amusement parks, doctor's offices, you add all that up, it's a year. Oh, I want that time back. And then when I thought about it, it reminded me of something from my childhood. Maybe you remember this book from Dr. Seuss called Oh, the Places You Will Go. And there is a page in there that I used to spend a lot of time with as a kid, The Waiting Place. His art is so fun. But I remember, if you can see this guy on the right in the marching band outfit, he's sitting there staring at that phone, and he just made me so angry. Because if you can see, the phone line, it ends. It's broken. And he's waiting for that phone to ring, and it was like, hey, idiot, do something better with your time. It's never going to happen. But all of these people are in the waiting place. Look at that long line for the one outhouse. I mean, the lady with her skis waiting for it to snow. It's not a fun place, but we've all been there. So this is what Dr. Seuss says about the waiting place. For people just waiting. Waiting for a train to go, or a bus to come, or a plane to go, or the mail to come, or the rain to go, or the phone to ring, or the snow to snow, or waiting around for a yes or a no, or waiting for their hair to grow. Everyone is just waiting. Waiting for the fish to bite, or waiting for wind to fly a kite, or waiting around for Friday night, or waiting perhaps for their Uncle Jake, or a pot to boil, or a better break, or a string of pearls, or a pair of pants, or a wig with curls, or another chance. Everyone is just waiting. And James says to the strugglers of this world who are stuck in this waiting place, depend on God's mercy. Depend on the one whose love is as near to us as the farmer to the soil. We end up bringing a lot of extra anxiety into our lives and probably some pain because we're not very patient. We don't like waiting. We'd like to have everything resolved now. I don't know what that looks like, by the way, because it's never happened. But we want answers. And our culture honors quick decision-making, decisiveness, and we become anxious in the waiting place. Maybe it makes us feel vulnerable. I read that there are more depressed teenagers right now than ever before. They think as high as like 30% in the last 18 months. Anxiety for teens has gone up. There's a higher occurrence of depression this time of year in general, but it's a heavy time. It's hard to wait, especially when we're not sure exactly what it is we're waiting for. You might want to just throw your hands up. Say, forget it. I give up. I surrender. This is hopeless. The world is doomed. And this is where James says, God is near. God is right here. Healing and grace. Just hold on. Be patient. We will see God. If you pay attention, if you long for peace, then just get up every day and tend to your fields. Do what's in front of you. Weed out the fear, the arrogance, the indifference. Pray. Oh, right. Pray. Ask for help. Offer it to someone else. We who seek to follow Jesus are cultivating patience. We're endurance farmers. We grow up in grace. Okay, that's lovely, Amy, but what does it look like in real life? Not all that long ago, there was a baby boy who was born, and his parents named him Skylar. For the first few weeks of his life, everything was fine, but then his parents started to notice that his appetite seemed to wane. He was more irritable, and he wanted to be held all the time. So they took him to the doctor, and they ran some tests. It wasn't good. Skylar had leukemia. His health began to deteriorate pretty quickly, so they started chemo, and they waited. Skylar became thinner, he got pale, and he slept most of the time. So the doctor said that he needed to stay at the hospital. He's not going to make it, they told the parents. That's when Skylar's mother called her pastor and said, please come and baptize him. So the pastor came, and he baptized little Skylar and handed the boy back to his mother. I just want to hold him, she said. And that's what she did through the night and the rest of the next day and the next and the next, until she was so exhausted she could hardly hold her head up. That's when the church was called in. She's afraid to put him down, the nurse explained. She's afraid to leave his side. So the church decided to come in shifts to hold Skylar so that his mother could rest, knowing that her son would not be alone. John was the only guy from his congregation that signed up to hold baby Skylar. Everybody else was a woman. And it kind of surprised people because John was not usually the kind of guy that did this sort of thing. John, the Vietnam veteran who was a special operations soldier in Cambodia at 21, pretty rough around the edges, quiet. No one had ever heard him sing a note in church. And yet, there he was, singing to Skylar, rocking him, telling him stories every day. The nurses at the hospital got to know the people from the church. One of them pulled the pastor aside when he was there and said, "It's the baptism and the love." The pastor just stood there in the hall in awe of what he saw. John, there with the baby, so caught up in singing to little Skylar that he didn't even know that the nurse and his pastor were watching. "Something has changed," she said. "That baby might just have a chance." Little did she know that while John was there singing to Skylar, there were still other people from the congregation at his home, adding another bathroom to the house. And others were taking turns watching Skylar's older brother and sister so that his parents could be at the hospital. The pastor and the nurse stood there with tears in their eyes. And then they looked at each other, and the pastor said, "That is why I haven't given up on church." Skylar is 16 years old now. His mom posted a picture of him on Facebook the other day, and he's so big, I hardly recognized him. He's been in remission for 15 and a half years. But that's not even what's most hopeful about this story. Real hope isn't about outcomes or happily ever afters. What's beautiful and hopeful about this story is that there are people willing to come together in the name of love. People who will show up and hold a sick little baby, even though it means that he might die in their arms. Real hope holds love without knowing what's coming. A faith like this holds all of us together. Showing up when we don't know how it's going to end and just being there together for the long haul. Doing what we can, not pretending to be something we aren't, but just allowing who we are in Christ to be enough. In a world with so much suffering, can we say that we are in it for love, for the long haul? I'm not talking about the 363 shopping days left until next Christmas. Ugh, gross. This journey calls for more than that. A willingness to be open to love and to wait for love. If we're stuck in the waiting place, are we cynical and scared? Maybe we just need to ask for help. Pray. Show up for someone else. Because Christmas isn't just a day. Christmas is a choice. Anytime we are willing to help birth love, we are living into Christmas. There are things worth waiting for. Life is too beautiful a gift to simply say, let's get on with it, moving on, that's over. No. Love is here. Together with grace and patience, we will carry it for the long haul. May it be so.